Yeah. Holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen. Bringing nothing but heat, leave you hanging like clothespins. He's a beast when he goes in, ice cold frozen. The first round draft pick, #1 chosen. Drop bombs, explosion, I'm self-promotion. And I keep shit moving like a flanker in motion. I'm the #1 spokesman, is my devotion. That I'm dedicated to the rhyme is my own notion. Brown water's the potion, it put hair on your chest. Or you can put one in the air and it'll put you to rest. Sweet dreams, I'm about to fade. I got my mind on my money and I'm dreaming about getting this all paid. Mr. Go-Getter, Mr. Assertive, Mr. Initiative, Mr. Results, man, I'm all about my business, kid. Damn.
Results and business on a suddenly not so casual Sunday in November. It is NFL Week 12. Circa Millions, the show, the shark, the gun, the odds fellows. Sunday, November 26, 2023, right here live on Sharky Waters Nation X, Twitter. Come on over to YouTube, join the chat, drop your plays. Let's fire it off. The gun is firing and smoking hot. So is the odds fellow. I'm feeling big vibes coming off Thanksgiving. Guns picks. What's going on this morning?
Man, I'm coming off a 9-3, 10 units special bang on the college football. I'm ready to carry it on to the NFL. I got a big card today. I ain't going in here not swinging. I'm always loading the clip and firing shots like a bastard every single time. And of course, we are joined here by the odds fellow once again here on a beautiful NFL Week 12. What's going on, my friend? How you doing today?
Got a rep. The old man who bets. He's also popping off, not on the screen, not in the video, but popping off nonetheless. Great shirt, great swag. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays to everybody. Got the Christmas tree this morning. It's already been a busy day. Coming off a little NBA sweeper, the 4-0. So we'll keep that going today too. Look for some NBA plays. But let's have some fun. NFL Sunday. It's creeping up here on fantasy football playoff season. The playoff race is tightening here. Let's go.
Opening the broadcast, not waiting around on a suddenly not so casual sharp Sunday. My first play, collaboration with the gun. I'm going to go into details and I will throw it to the gun. 1 o'clock, Lucas Oil Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana. We're taking the Colts at home. Got this early week. That's why you guys follow on Twitter. Please turn your notifications on. Minus 126 money line. That is around 150 now for good reason. Let's talk about it. This is a situational fade of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay started this season 6-3 ATS, far too hot. This is Baker Mayfield and a pedestrian aging team on both sides of the ball. 0-1 since. Continue to sell the Bucs, specifically in this spot. I know the gun is going to go into this. Road, back-to-back sequence in football is very difficult. It's even more difficult outside of the division, and it's even more specifically difficult off of a game against the Niners. The Niners just physical the hell out of the game and suck the life out of teams, staying on the road versus a Colts team off a bye week. The rest advantage could not be more significant in a sport. We don't usually talk about rest advantage like this. Let's briefly talk about the Bucs. Bucs started this campaign 4-0 ATS on the road. Totally and utterly unsustainable. Outright win at Minnesota. Outright win at New Orleans. Tight backdoor cover at Buffalo. Tight backdoor cover at Houston. In those 4 covers, they were outgained 1,712 yards to 1,163 yards. When you're getting outgained in 4 football games by more than 5 football fields, you should not be 3-1 ATS. They've been backdoor artists. They've been wizards of statistical anomalies. The Colts are 0-3 in this spot outside of the division straight up. Gardner Minshew and the boys stand up at home today. Lucas Oil Stadium, 1 o'clock. Guns picks, alignment.
Yeah, full alignment on this one. My money line here, I got a minus 134. I know it's escaped us now. What I'm seeing on the board here, I'm seeing minus 2.5 with juice. I'm seeing the 3 starting to pop off right now. I wouldn't talk you off of taking it by the spread, but for us, we're kind of afraid of taking numbers at 2.5 or less now because we're seems like we're always getting bit by the hook. But let's talk about the situation. I mean, a lot of these points that I'm going to be talking about here, Sharks already kind of alluded to. 4-2 straight up in their last 6 games, Tampa is, but they're 1-5 straight up in that run. Indianapolis is 6-4 ATS this year. They're off back-to-back wins versus Carolina and New England, and they're 3-1 ATS in their last 4 games coming off a bye. Tampa's just running red hot on the road. They're 5-0 ATS in their last 5 road games, but they're 2-3 straight up in that span. The 2 road games that they won were NFC opponents, Minnesota week 1 and New Orleans in week 4. They've played 2 AFC opponents on the road this season. They're 0-2 straight up, but 2-0 ATS playing Houston, losing that game, and they lost to Buffalo. Indianapolis at home this season. They're 1-4 straight up, 2-3 ATS, which isn't great, but in those situations, they were short home dogs, 3.5 points or less. Now you're seeing them here sitting as a favorite. The last 2 games they've been favored, Carolina and New England. Guess what happened? They covered and they won those games. So when they're a favorite, it's a very different story when you're taking Indianapolis. Statistically, Tampa is just worse than Indianapolis this season. They're ranked 23rd in offensive yards per play, where Indianapolis is ranked 16th. Tampa's ranked 27th in defensive yards per play. Indy is ranked 15th. So Indy definitely the better team in this one. And situationally, Shark alluded to it. Bad spot here for Tampa. This is Tampa's 4th road game in 5 weeks, where Indianapolis is coming off a bye, well rested. 2 weeks to prepare for this Tampa Bay team as well. Also, you got to look at Tampa dealing with a slew of injuries on the defensive side. Levante David, Jamal Dean listed as out for this game. And of course, Devin White, Logan Hall, Carlton Davis III, all banged up and listed as questionable. Whether they play or not, they're going to be playing hurt in this game. Tampa coming off a game that we've talked about. Like every time you play the San Francisco 49ers, you always typically lay an egg the next week. I think there's only one team that did not lay an egg after playing San Francisco, and that was Jacksonville. But Jacksonville got the snot piss beat out of them. They were going to go and dominate their divisional opponent the next week, no matter what happened. So you have a Tampa team coming in here banged up on their 4th road game in 5 weeks, playing an Indy team well rested and on a little bit of a hot streak. Granted, they're playing inferior opponents, but Indianapolis is the spot here. I'm going to cut out the spread on this one. I got it at the money line early, -134. That's a 2-unit play for me.
Next play, divisional football, the odds fellow. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. You're looking at the road team. You had a special play last week on the money line. You're going right back to the source. So much ambiguity in this game. New offensive coordinator for the Steelers. First time since World War II, changing coordinators in the middle of the season. Astounding reliability, sustainability, whatever you want to call it, from this franchise. And of course, the Bengals with Jake Browning at quarterback. I couldn't figure it out, but apparently you can. The road team on the money line.
I love this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I think they're more resilient than we probably give them credit for. You know, you hear a lot of statistics about Tomlin, right? This is going to be divisional smash mouth football, AFC North, one of my favorite divisions to bet this year. We've been on the right side of a lot of these spots. Interestingly enough, one of the things I hate about the NFL schedule makers is this is the first division matchup this late in the year for these two teams. I wish he would have gotten it earlier, but you know, you look at some of these other squads, they've played both teams again in the next like 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 weeks. These teams are going to be matching up. But here, this is where I think Pittsburgh puts their foot down, right? The defensive mettle that this team has, knowing that they have to step up. They almost got that game last week against the Browns, right? 13-10 loss in a close battle. And that's what finally triggered that move, that Matt Canada change at the offensive coordinator standpoint. And I do think that's going to make a big difference, how this offense functions and what they do with the defense right there side by side. So I do probably expect a low scoring. I would lean, the under, a lot like these matchups that we've seen defensive scores, especially with backup quarterbacks or poor quarterback play in the mix. So I don't know if that's a play or an angle pregame. And I also don't want to flirt with the line that's spread up to 2.5, but I love the 7th ranked defensive DVOA, and I love the spot. I think you're going to get a little bit of that new coach boost, even though this is just a coordinator. I think this is a big statement for Pittsburgh, trying to stay in the mix in the division. The fact that they don't get Joe Burrow here, I think is just another plus. Yeah, Browning looked decent. Still some weapons on that Cincinnati offense, but I think you're just going to get a grind of a game, and I take Pittsburgh in a close one. So give me the money line. I saw it -135. There's some -140s. If you want to flirt with the 2.5, it's still under a field goal. I just know so many more of these games lately have been ending a point or 2 points, and you can really get screwed more so than it's felt like in the past. So Pittsburgh money line. Let's ride the 7th ranked DVAO defense, and let's take that Matt Canada gone. A little bit of boost there.
Yeah, and just a snapshot on this evening's card. This afternoon's, if you will. I always call it this evening. We're always in the nighttime in some beautiful way on a suddenly not so casual sharp Sunday. But 10 out of 11 games this afternoon graded inside of 4 points. Historical parity across the league. So many moving parts. We don't entirely think all these games are going to come down to 1 point, just to clarify. It's just if you can get the number right around 125, 130, it is advantageous to reduce variance. Reducing variance in this game could be crucial, as we mentioned. First game for, I believe, Evan Faulkner. I didn't do a ton of research there, but it seemed like there was a big explosive event between Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin. It seemed like this had been going awry all year. They can't score the football. Our guy Justin McElvey in the chat says Stacks Pod Steelers team total over 18.5. He's onto something there because this team, as Anthony mentioned, is due for a jolt offensively. And you saw it last week with the Bills. You change your offensive coordinator, all of a sudden the team looks like a totally reborn unit. So I think you guys are onto something here. With significance, Anthony Latino, Pittsburgh minus 135. Divisional football going back to the gun. Jacksonville Jaguars on the road in Texas, NRG Stadium, 1 o'clock. A lot going on in this game. Jacksonville hammered early season against Houston at home. They did this last year, and they went on the road and hammered Houston. Guns, you believe this is going to continue today with the reversal of home field advantage?
Yeah, I didn't even expect to be playing this game, but as I was writing my notes for the show this morning, I was like, man, I think I just stumbled upon a play here. And I'm going to be taking Jacksonville here on the money line. I'm going to cut the spread right out. I think it's minus 1.5 right now, but we're going to go play this one at minus 118. I got that one on FanDuel this morning. It's still available out there, so go grab it now. Listen, history shows that Houston owns this matchup. They're 10-1 straight up in the last 11 versus Jacksonville, but the home team is 1-4 straight up in ATS in the last 5 meetings. So there's a little bit of a yin and yang there as far as the ATS is concerned with this one. Now, Jacksonville lost their first meeting 37-17, despite winning the yardage battle plus 37. So I started to dig into the box score, as I normally do when I see something that's kind of weird. You lost by 20, but you won the net yardage battle. They had a -2 turnover ratio in that game. You look at the first half, Houston was up 17-0 at the half, but the way they scored in that one, it was weird. Jacksonville missed a field goal, that turned into points. A blocked field goal, that turned into points. And a fumble, that turned into points. 17 points off turnovers or missed field goals or blocked field goals is what the result of that half was, and it took them right out of the game. So basically, Jacksonville overall in that game, including the second half, 5 mistakes from Jacksonville turned into 23 points. I don't think Jacksonville's going to do that twice. Now you got to look at Jacksonville. Not a good home team, but on the road, very good, impressive. Excluding the London games, we know those are outliers. It's neutral field, and Jacksonville did dominate in those, by the way. They're 3-0 straight up in ATS on the road this season with a plus 10 point differential, plus 40 net yard average. Houston has been productive at home. I'll give them that. Plus 5 point differential, plus 75 net yard average with a 4-1 straight up record at home. But they're 2-3 ATS over that span. 3 of those games were versus NFC opponents: New Orleans, Tampa, and Arizona. The only home loss they had was inside the division versus Indianapolis, week 2, 31-20. So that gives you a little bit of a corollary that maybe they play a little bit better outside the division or outside the conference at home versus playing teams inside their division. Jacksonville will take advantage of Houston's weak defense. In the first meeting, they actually put up 288 passing yards versus them in the first matchup. Houston is ranked 25th in opponent passing yards per game and 24th in opponent passing yards per play. So they are a weak passing defense. Also, Jacksonville inside the division, very strong this season. 3-1 ATS inside the division this season. Seeking revenge for a very poor performance in the first matchup. I think they are primed for a run here, and this is the back half of the season. We saw it last year with Jacksonville. What can they do? They tear shit up at the right time, and I think they're going to get it done here. Give me Jacksonville here on the money line, minus 118, 2-unit play.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. The line functionality in this matchup has not told a good story. Jacksonville favored heavily, minus 7.5 in week 1. as you mentioned, blown out. And I think more so than just the actual box score and game dispersion, that was a trap game. That was the game before Jacksonville went to London for 2 games. So look ahead, travel, look ahead, whatever you want to call it. Just a brutal spot. The gun, the official, Jacksonville minus 118. Razor sharp picks in the chat.
Shout out to the Razor! Shout out to the chat! He's on Jacksonville, and I love it, baby.
Go your head, gonna grow your hair out there.
Of the highest order. Staying at 1 o'clock, going back to the gun. More divisional football. A lot of divisional games this week. Atlanta at home. Getting Desmond Ridder back, which I believe will make a difference in this game. We have detailed Desmond Ridder over and over, dating back to late last year. This guy performs very specifically to the spot. His best spot is at home in the division. The game is a bit difficult from the standpoint of New Orleans being a statistical bye. I think they're going to start their upward movement potentially next week. And the gun agrees officially on Atlanta plus 1.5.
Yeah, I mean, playing at home, I love taking Atlanta this one, especially how they perform inside the division. I'll get to that in a second. But you have New Orleans coming off their bye week, off a loss to Minnesota on the road in their previous game, 5-5 straight up, 2-7-1 ATS this season. This is 2 teams overall, very poor ATS records. Atlanta on this one coming off a bye as well. Close loss versus Arizona on the road, 25-23 loss, 3 straight in that run, 4-6 straight up, 2-8 ATS this season. Now, I could pick apart a lot of the common opponents on this one. I think they have 6 common opponents this season, but I'm going to just pick out the Minnesota one because that was the one that is closely correlated because what Minnesota had to play these 2 teams back to back as of late. You have New Orleans losing 27-19 with 280 yards of total offense, minus 108 net yards, minus 2 turnover ratio in that game. On the other hand, when you look at Atlanta, they only lost 31-28, but they had 370 yards of total offense, plus 70 net yards and a 0 turnover ratio. Performed better. I could break down every single one of these teams, but I want to bore you with the common opponents on this one. But I'll tell you this, Atlanta statistically has played better versus these opponents than New Orleans has. Also got to look at how these teams prepare after buys. After a bye, Atlanta is 3-1 ATS going back to 2019, where New Orleans is 0-4 ATS going back to 2019. Also got to look at New Orleans, 1-5-1 ATS is a way favorite. Atlanta at 6-2 ATS versus divisional opponents, where New Orleans 1-6-1 ATS versus divisional opponents dating back to last season. While Atlanta on this one is 1-2 straight up, 3-0 ATS in the last 3 meetings versus Atlanta, so they've covered as dogs in most of these spots. And then you got to look at New Orleans. They're just dealing with a slew of injuries on both sides of the ball. No Michael Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore probably not going to be playing in this game as well. And then you got Derek Carr. I don't know what the condition is with him. It seems like he's going to be playing this game, but he's coming off a concussion protocol. And it seems like every single game he's not playing at 100%. And he's never playing the full games. They're always having to go with Jameis at some point in the game. So maybe we have one of those situations here. So I think Atlanta is in a better spot. They're just hungry for a win. 3 close losses by 5 points or less in their last 3 games. Now they're back home, playing a divisional opponent where they excel versus a New Orleans team that underperforms inside the division. So with all that being said, I'm going to be taking the dog here. Give me Atlanta here, plus 1.5, 2-unit play.
Yeah. And Razor on the Saints. This is a tough game for me. The main reason for it is because, as we mentioned, Saints such a statistical bye, having given up, I believe, 5 games this year by the smallest of margins. And I think even more egregiously, just laying down before their bye week at Minnesota, down 24-3 in the first half at our new friend, the Pastronaut. And we love him and his ATS efficiency. But regardless, off that insult, coming back off a bye week, I'm not on this officially. Conversation wins. But what I suspect is going to happen in this game, I think the Saints are going to come out in the first half and take a lead because they have to react off that dud first half at Minnesota. And I think Desmond Ridder is going to do what he always does. I said he covers at home in the division. He also does something even more specifically. He plays much better in the second half. This guy is notoriously poor in the first half. So I think we're going to see New Orleans early, Atlanta late. Conversation does win. Staying at 1 o'clock, a couple games we don't have officials on, but we do want to through them. Throwing it to the odds fellow for a game that I'm sure he is not excited by, but we'll try to excite him by leading into the conversation. 1-9 Carolina, 3-7 Tennessee. Carolina, 1 win all year. Tennessee, 3-game losing streak. Where do you go with this game?
Tankathon here, right? Tankathon. I personally thought a few weeks ago the Titans were selling, and maybe the Carolina Panthers, who you got to remember, do not have their own first-round pick. Maybe a little bit more to play for, right? It's always hard to dissect that in the NFL because these guys are playing for the next contract. They want film, they want tape. But the Titans were starting to sell. They've been banged up at the offensive line, and I don't think they're a good football team. Now, that being said, turning it over to Will Levis probably was the right move at the right time to see and evaluate what they have in this guy. But I do lean the Panthers a little bit in what probably should be a close game, right? If you can get it at that 3.5 hook spot, I don't think that's bad because from a DVOA standpoint, these teams are a hot mess. Carolina, 31st overall. Tennessee sitting a little bit higher at 22nd. But both teams really poor offensively. So that's why I think you're probably going to see a sloppy one here. Sloppy tends to lead towards, shorter fields, a lot of field goals, maybe some turnovers, close game. And that's why I would lean a little bit the 3.5 plus the narrative of, again, that Panthers team. I hate saying they have a little bit more to play for, but, they can't land in that top spot. It doesn't matter as much because that pick belongs, I think, to the Bears. So slight lean Carolina in what should be a slot fest.
Yeah. This game for me is honestly very polarized. I don't even think this is going to be potentially close.
Yeah.
And that might sound ridiculous because it's a 3.5 point spread on a 36.5. But I see this going one of two ways. I see Will Levis coming back off 3 abysmal road games to where he performed amazingly well in his first career start against Atlanta. 4 touchdown passes. Everybody crowned him immediately. You guys remember this going back a month. People were buying him on the road. We faded him the next week at Pittsburgh. And we said maybe again at Tampa Bay. And last week at Jacksonville. But point is, he performed great at home. And he performed great outside of the division. What do you find here? Outside the division, back at home. This is an inherent bounce back. However, Carolina on this number did perform well and cover an official from the gun in Week 10 Thursday Night Football at the Chicago Bears. Plus 3.5 lost by 3 points. I don't think this is going to be tight, however. I think Levis either craters down and just had a one-off outlier to open his career, or he bounces back and hammers this team. There's just no way around it for me.
And it's not like just going to the line. It's not like Vegas has been able to grade these teams closely because the Titans are 4-6 against the spread and the Panthers are 2-7-1. So they're a mess, from that standpoint as well against the number.
Correct. And if you go back to the last 2 weeks, just a perfect example of what you're saying, at Tampa, they were a short dog, plus 2.5, plus 3. They get hammered 20-6, not even close. Last week, 6.5 at the Jags, get blown out by 20. So this line, again, he's either going to ball out and they're going to hammer him, or he's going to just be complete fool's gold, and Carolina's going to win the game by 7 points. I could be totally wrong. Just my take. Guns, any comments?
Tough game for me. 2 rookie quarterbacks. I would rather lean with the dog on this one because you get a nice number here at plus 3.5. But Carolina, I like them better at home as a dog than I do on the road. Unfortunately, but I don't. This one was just really, really tough for me because 2 teams like they're either playing it like you said, they're either gonna like lay an egg and lose by 20, or they're going to actually compete and actually ball out from both sides of the spectrum. Carolina, you would think they'd want to win games. You would think they want to put in an effort. They're not playing for draft picks here. They're 1-9. It's like, do you want Chicago to have the value on the draft pick? That would be my motivation. But you know what? This is just a complete pass for me. But if I had to lean on this one, I'd rather take the dog than I'd take the favorite.
Yeah. Staying at 1 o'clock, another game which, frankly, is just bizarrely disastrous to handicap. New England at the Giants, 2-8, 3-8. And you find the Patriots coming in off a bye week, did get beat in Frankfurt in their most recent performance, just an abysmal offensive performance across the board. Mac Jones threw an interception at the goal line that is purely inexcusable as a professional. I'm sure you guys remember that game. Just short-armed the ball at the goal line. Guy wide open in the end zone. And what that brings me to open this conversation, I think Mac Jones is psychologically scarred. I really think he is scarred. I think he's been hit his whole career. The Patriots have given him no weapons and no time. The guy's one of the most hit quarterbacks in the league. Not only that, I think they have the wrong offensive coordinator. Bill O'Brien is a notorious hard-on. You guys remember when he got into an argument with Tom Brady on the sidelines in, I believe, 2009. This is Mac Jones, not Tom Brady. Mac Jones, in my opinion, is very soft mentally. And that might sound funky. I'm not shading the guy coming out of Bama. You'd think this whole thing. He's just a nice guy. He's not a hard-on type of dude. He's not the type of guy as a coach you just blast and just make him feel terrible about himself. I was watching that game in Frankfurt. It literally looked like he was about to cry on the sidelines. And I think he's just deeply, deeply scarred. Throwing it to the gun. I got some more comments on this, but I did want to make that point about the psychology of the quarterback here.
You have two bad teams. I mean, it's weird to see the line getting steamed up the way it is. It's sitting at 4.5 right now. I remember it was at 3 like a couple days ago. I don't understand this movement whatsoever, why people are, steaming it up to New England. DeVito having a great game. I think that was just a fluke. Every time New England plays the Giants, I always get like a little bit of a ooh, it's like this is going to be one of those ones that lost. But this is two different teams. This is not the ones from the 2008s and the early, the Tom Brady era. I can't back New England ever for the rest of the year. I will not do it because they will continue to step on their dicks in every single situation. And it's because Mac Jones, like you said, something's wrong with him mentally. He's getting chewed out on the sidelines. The media's on his ass. He's probably getting a lot of shit, even just going to fucking Dunkin' Donuts in the morning to go grab a coffee. Hey, fuck you, Matt. You fucking cocksucker. Just hearing New England accents left and right. It's probably not ideal for him. I don't even know if I think he's going to be starting today, but how long are they going to keep him? Are they going to keep him on a short leash? One mistake, are they going to put in Bailey Zappi? I have no idea. This team is directionless. I think Bill just wants to get the fuck out of there and go bang some 20-year-old in Sea Caucus or something. I don't know what he wants to do. But yeah, this is just two teams that are going downward. And I don't care who the favorite is. I don't care who the dog is. This is just a game you completely avoid, and hopefully it never reaches red zone. Yeah,
I mean, Anthony, what do you think of this one?
This is one of those games where I'd actually lean to the over a little bit. I think it's sitting low at like a 35-36. Do these teams finally get aggressive and open it up? Do you get some turnovers that turn into some short fields and some points? That's an easier number to go over, right? I think it's the lowest total on the board, probably by at least a point or two, because that Pittsburgh Bengals game's ticking down a little bit. But I lean over. I mean, it is strange. I agree with the gun, and maybe you have a point on it of like to see all this steam and to now get a number at like 4.5. That's telling. Maybe it's situationally like, you're going to have a blowout on either side, kind of like what we were talking about in that Titans matchup. But I'd lean over a little bit because I think it can get there. And I think the teams will be a little bit more aggressive. But I could see the blowout factor coming into play here as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go through it. I mean, one of the things that I found to be incredibly sharp, maybe not blowout, the only game that the Patriots covered on the road all year was at MetLife Stadium. Maybe not coincidentally, at the Jets. They won the game by 5 points, 15-10, and they won on a late safety to get there. So as much as we want to be contrarian with overs and this, and that, I just don't see explosiveness. But again, I could be totally wrong. I think that there is some value on the Patriots here. Gunn said it, he can't do it. I'm not doing it with my own money, but I do think there is some value here. Guns, comment.
I was just thinking about this as you were talking. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but think about the 2 wins that they have. Buffalo and the Jets. So inside the state of New York, they are 2-0 ATS and straight up this season. Just make a little note of that.
Yeah, exactly. And if there was ever a spot to fade the Giants, it would be here off a huge win on the road, 31-16. But as we always say, go to the box score. Did the Giants really outcompete them, or was this just classic Commanders irresponsible football? 6 turnovers. I mean, come on, man. 6 turnovers.
It was painful to watch. I had it on. It was painful.
So you say that. You say, okay, huge high, coming off a divisional win where they were gifted the game by just really the lack of quality from the Commanders. That's where I think you're seeing steam on the Patriots here. I think that whatever market steam is coming in on this, they're saying exactly that. This is the ultimate fade high of the Giants and buy low of the Patriots, who, again, elongated winning streak, totally insulted in Frankfurt, a game they should have won. You should win a football game if you hold your opponent to 10 points. Right. And final point on that, this is a Gardner Minshew Colts team that scores the ball too. So the Pats defense played well in that game. Just a lot going on here. I think the sharp movement is 100% on the Patriots today. And I always would advise you on the sharp movement. Don't take the Giants. And staying at 4 o'clock, more officials here. Just wanted to get through those games, the grease fire ones. 32 minutes in the books. Sharky Waters Nation 9 Words of Lifestyle. Ride the wave, get out of the water. Cleveland Browns on the road in Denver. Another tough game. Another tight spread. Another game I looked at and thought to myself, wow, Cleveland looks good. Wow, Denver looks good. Anthony Latino opening the conversation at 4 o'clock with an official from the road team.
Cleveland Browns stay in the AFC North, stay in defense. Theme of the day. These teams are rallying around these guys. Now, the counterpoint, obviously, Shark mentioned it. Denver has been good. A little 4-game winning streak. They come in at 5-5 overall. The point differential looks like shit at -51. That thing really gets a little bit tighter if you throw out the Miami game, which was early on when Denver couldn't get out of their own way. Cleveland sitting there at 47. But I think you saw in a division matchup and probably a tougher game, a little bit of what this defense and team can do around DTR and rallying around him. He threw 1 pick, was a little bit more efficient, but actually, had to go get them on a drive to go win a game and get them in field goal position, and he did that. He had a full week of practice. He finally had the first time reps. He gets that again here, right? Coming off a win and building a little bit of momentum. The first-ranked defense overall, DVOA-wise, first-ranked. Cleveland holds that spot, despite some trip-ups. They just played last week, the 7th-ranked defense and the 14th-ranked offense. Denver similarly graded here from an offensive standpoint at 15th. So you saw what they did in that Pittsburgh game, right? Holding them to 10 points. Now you get a similarly graded offense and a team, Denver, that I think has been running a little bit too hot, and I think they get tripped up here. So Cleveland plus 1.5. I don't hate the money line if you sitting at plus 105, plus 110 if you'd rather take that. I'm riding the defense.
Yeah, I think you made the point. You have to ride the defense here. I think it's very, very difficult to ask Dorian Thompson-Robinson to do anything in this environment. The gun knows this guy well. I'll throw it to the gun in a second. I saw this guy's stats last night. I was not impressed. 44 for 80, 295 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 picks. And if you guys remember, we faded him in his only home start in the early portion of the season, a blowout divisional home loss. Last week, tight win, not because he did anything spectacular. Defense. Anthony said it. Guns, picks, comments.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I was going to mention the same thing. You hit it right on the head. 0 touchdowns, 4 INTs. He's throwing for a 55% pass completion rate. What I've noticed with Denver in these wins, they've won 4 straight, right? They played a lot of these mobile quarterbacks. So you got Green Bay. Jordan Love has a little bit of mobility, can run out of the pocket. Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes can do the same thing. Same thing, Josh Allen. And then they played Dobbs. So these are mobile quarterbacks. And what I've noticed is they've figured out a scheme that works for the team where they can spy the quarterback and keep him inside the pocket and not let them use their legs, making the guy one-dimensional. This is going to be a guy, DTR, that's going to want to try to run the ball outside the pocket and use his legs to try to create something because he can't do it in the passing game. That's where I think Denver has a little bit of advantage in this game. And I think they're just going to use the same scheme they've used in the last 4 weeks. That's worked for them. Have a QB spy, middle linebacker, and then play everybody man up, and then let DTR try to pass the ball and beat them that way. I think this is a bad spot here for Cleveland here going on the road. Denver's just playing really good football. They're playing playoff caliber football. Russell Wilson has a little bit more confidence lately, which is kind of weird to see. He has a 69% pass completion rate, 7 yards per attempt passing, 19 touchdowns, 4 INTs this year. Not bad numbers here for Russell Wilson. Kind of getting back to the old Seattle days, I think. I would probably lean on the Denver side on this one. I just think, with them winning, Cleveland winning 3 straight, 2 back-to-back divisional highs of high wins as well, I think eventually the levee's going to break, especially with not having Deshaun Watson in the lineup.
Yeah. This game is difficult. Going back to the chat, Kelly Vincenzo says, look for under props in Denver, Cleveland. I wouldn't disagree. I don't see a ton of offense here. The hardest thing for me about this game when I first looked at it, both teams are on winning streaks. Cleveland dubbed 3, Denver dubbed 4. And that's really just across all sports. It's not just pro football. You want to find teams that are coming from the opposite direction. One team's too hot, one team's too cold, and they meet on a given week. When both teams are hot and probably a little hotter than they're supposed to be, it becomes a fade for both sides of the game. Denver here running, I would say, really a little too clean, more so than Cleveland. As Anthony mentioned, Cleveland has some sustainability on the defensive side of the ball. These wins for Denver versus Green Bay by 2, caught Kansas City before Kansas City played overseas, total trap, like 15x revenge game, whatever that was. At Buffalo, just another game that Buffalo gave them the game, 24-22. And last week against Minnesota, 1-point win. So 3 wins last 4 weeks by 2, 2, and 1 point. I do think that Cleveland is probably the side in this game.
Another good point on this one, though, is look at the turnover ratio in the last 3 games with Denver. +4 turnover ratio versus Kansas City, +3 turnover ratio versus Buffalo, +3 turnover ratio versus Minnesota as well. And if you got a DTR guy that loves to throw picks, he's thrown 4 already. All you have to do is take care of the ball. You can stay with Denver and win games. That's all I'm saying. It's like that's what I would tell DTR if I was his coach. It's like,
don't hand it off. Just hand it off. Just hand it off.
Don't make a mistake. This is what this team does. They feast off turnovers.
Yep.
Yeah, without question. My first official, 4:05 p.m. Rams Cardinals State Farm Stadium, Glendale, Arizona. We're taking the road team. Money line -137. Official. Great spot here. And the first thing you find when you look at this division, these teams just play the same game against each other over and over and over. And that's the beauty of divisional football. The Rams own the Cardinals. The Niners own the Rams. A tale as old as time. Go into more detail. Arizona, 4-1 at home. ATS. I think that's a little too hot, and I think it's situationally specific. All outside of the division. Caught the Giants early season in a tight one, beat Dallas outright, backdoored Baltimore on an onside kick, turned into a touchdown, and did get Atlanta 2 weeks ago. Kyler Murray also has very, very specific tendencies in his career. As we detailed last week, before Guns and I believe Anthony both took the Cardinals on the road at +5.5 to cover at the Texans, he plays great on the road and great on the road outside of the division. So, of course, yes, they did cover last week. Now you come back home to where he basically is the polar opposite of that metric. 3-8 ATS home in his career in the division. Go even more specifically against the Rams. Sean McVay, the Ram unit here, their scheme with Matthew Stafford, and I believe even before the Goff years potentially, just play well in Arizona. 2019, 34-7 Rams. 2020, 38-28 Rams. 2021, 30-23 Rams. 2022, 20-12 Rams. Also, the Rams are just a bye team. We bought them last week. They did get there late against Seattle. I think that's going to show upward movement here. This team is 4-6. People wrote them off, and they're going to continue to write them off. Couple points. Remember, guys, you get one extra week at the back end of the regular season. They still have 7 more games. This team, I mean, they're not going to do it, but they could finish 4 or 5 games over 500. So this is not old football where you're 4-6 in November, your season's done, you're packing it in. They're not packing it in. And they're also a statistical bye. They started 3-6 ATS. 1-0 last one. Buy that. But as we've said numerous weeks here, why? Non-covers. San Francisco, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Dallas, at Green Bay with a backup quarterback. It's either been injuries to Stafford or deep quality playoff teams. This is not that. Final point on it. All the covers that the Rams have had this year are all inside of the division. 1-0 on the road, inside the division. Week 1 at Seattle, 30-13. Home against Arizona, we had that correctly, 26-9. And last week against Seattle, we are 2-0 betting this team in the division. I don't think it goes any other direction. I love this today on the money line. I think this might be a little tighter than people think, but that's the whole point of betting the money line in pro football. Unofficially, -137. Anthony, any comments on this one?
No, I actually lean under from a total perspective. The under, it was around this number. That's the only thing that scares me a little bit. If it didn't tick down at all, but I think it was sitting at like 45 or 45.5 the last one, and they scored a total of 35 points, 26-9. So I lean under a little bit, but couldn't agree more with the points. I think this team is just different with Stafford, and that's what we've seen. If you look statistically, it's why I've been on them in some spots this year, and with Stafford bouncing back.
Yeah, 100%. Love that play. Buy it, live it, love it, and dominate it. Next play. Speaking of unders, more divisional football. Love this. Love when we get data. And we're sitting here data abundantly, November 26th, Sunday morning here. Kansas City at Las Vegas. Kansas City has owned Las Vegas for a while now. 17-3 straight up last 20. However, the gun looking at an under on this afternoon's card.
Yeah, when I saw this number, I had to go back and look to see what the numbers were in the history of this matchup, and I was kind of alarmed that the number was this low. But when you actually dig into the numbers and you dig into the stats, you can see why it's this low. And I think we're looking at another underplay here with this divisional matchup. Now you got to look at KC's defense, drastically improved and been vital to keep KC in games, which is kind of weird with Pat Mahomes in that offense. The defense has been carrying this team across the finish line in a lot of these situations, only allowing 16 points per game to their opponents, 283 yards per game in total offense. They're ranked 4th in opponent yards per game, 4th in opponent yards per play, 4.7 yards per play given up to their opponents. They also get to the quarterback very well. They have an 11.8% sack rate, which ranks them number 2 in the NFL, just behind the Cleveland Browns. Las Vegas's defense, kind of middle of the road as far as stats go, but versus divisional opponents, they've actually played pretty well on the defensive side. 283 yards per game given up to their divisional opponents, and they hold them to 20 points per game in that sample size. Now, looking at the history of this matchup, I told you the totals used to be really high. We're talking the last 4 totals have been 51.5, 51.5, 52.5, 48.5. The lowest total that this matchup has seen at this number, you have to go back to 2015. That's the last time it's ever dropped this low, and I think that was a 45 on that one. The over has hit in 5 out of the last 6 meetings, so I think we're due for to hit maybe a little bit of an under trend on this one. Then you look at what the teams have done this season. Raiders 9-2 to the under this season overall, 5-0 to the under at home, 2-0 to the under versus divisional opponents. Then you look at KC, 8-2 in the under this season overall, 3-1 to the under on the road, 3-0 to the under versus divisional opponents. So you see in the trend, it's under City. You have a low total here for a reason. I think I'm going to be jamming it here with the under 43.5. That's the number I got it at last night. Give me the under in the KC Las Vegas game 2-unit play.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, I think you're onto something here. Kansas City just can't score the football right now, and it's kind of bizarre to watch. It really is weird.
They got dropsies big time. Dropsies. Oh, my God.
It really is just, what you see. And I think this is a huge compliment to Kansas City. But this is what happens when you have a quarterback that's probably going to sustain in his career for 15 years. It's like you saw with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. There's ebbs and flows. There's personnel changes. There's coordinator changes. And they're going to find a new scheme in some direction here. And they're more run heavy. Isaiah Pacheco runs the ball like a just an absolute renegade shot out of a cannon. But the receiver situation has been sketchy ever since Tyreek Hill left. And it's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. The last time these teams played did finish 31-13, which is 44. So the line being right at 44, I think you're in that range again. The ATS side here for me is a push as well. Our guy 77 figures says, give me the Raiders plus 9.5. I wouldn't disagree with you there. I really wouldn't disagree. I think you're getting something we've talked about numerous times in pro ball specifically, not so much college. But when you get an opening line that's a push line and they move it based on market steam in one direction, you're actually getting positive CLV here at plus 9.5. And why I say that is because the last time these teams played, it was January 7th in Las Vegas, 31-13. Key point, though, Kansas City was minus 8.5 in that game. This game opened at minus 8. And particularly in divisional football, line functionality, when you win by 18 on an 8.5 and they move it back to 8.5, what they're telling you is it's going to be tighter and that they think the line is dead sharp at 8.5. So what they're telling you is Kansas City is going to win this game by 7, 8, 9, or 10 points. If you get plus 9.5, you're covering 3 of those 4 numbers there. So good point there. Sharp stuff all around. Next official, three-way official, the only three-way alignment of the broadcast. Big time stuff. 4:25 p.m. Lincoln Financial Field, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're all taking the Bills. We got early week at 3.5. You can get it 3.5 now. Advise you guys to buy the steam. We don't always do it, but this is pro football. Getting 3.5 is huge in this spot. Throwing it to the gun to open the conversation.
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones that got the 3.5. Bought it early in the week. I'd still like it at 3, but I'm just buying a little bit of insurance just in case of some buffoonery in this game. But let's talk about these two teams here for a second. Buffalo 6-5, straight up 4-7 ATS off a nice divisional home win after firing their Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, 32-6, beating up on the Jets. Now you got Philly. They're running red hot, right? 9-1 straight up, 6-2 ATS, coming off a huge Monday Night Football win. Probably one they should have lost if they had Stickum on their KC's wide receiver hands. 21-17 was the outcome. Minus 98 net yards for the game. While Buffalo is 2-2 straight up in their last 4 games, they're holding opponents to 18 points per game, 289 yards of total offense with a plus 88 net yard average in that span. While you look at Philly on the other side, we're looking at 4-game samples because that's how you know where the team is sitting right now. It's like there's hot streaks, there's cold streaks, there's stock high, stock low, whatever. I like the 4-game sample size. Last 4 games for them, they've given up for Philly, given up 22 points per game, 365 yards total offense with a minus 50 net yard average. In back-to-back games, they have held their opponents to under. They've been held to under 300 yards of total offense. They have lost the net yardage battle in their last 3 games. So you see in regression here for Philly. This is a team that's due for a loss, in my opinion. Now, Philly, bad situational spot. This is what we love to call the deli sandwich, man. We got KC off a huge Monday Night Football road wins, highs of highs, high five, Super Bowl revenge game for them. They needed that one. They wanted that one. Guess who they got next week? The San Francisco 49ers. They get them at home, too. So it's a rematch of the NFC Championship as well. Maybe with San Francisco with a little bit of a revenge because, they were playing without no quarterback in that game, if you remember. Brock Purdy getting hurt in that one. So there's a rematch there. So they may be looking a little bit ahead of this Buffalo Bills team. Buffalo Bills will be motivated here not because they're facing a great team like Philly, but they have a bye week next week. A much-needed bye week. This team is banged up. They're hurt. Defensively, they are struggling. So they are going to give their best effort here versus a top opponent and get it done here. And I think the move to get rid of Dorsey and put in a new offensive coordinator in there is going to be positive for Josh Allen, positive for that offense, and we have yet to see the production of this Buffalo Bills team. So let's take advantage of the value that we're getting here as a dog on the road, outside the division, outside the conference. Give me Buffalo here, plus 3.5, 2-unit play.
The odds fellow alignment, I believe.
You know it. And look, I hate to fade this Eagles team, but I think Guns laid it out. It's a tough situational spot for them, and at some point, you figure they're going to get tripped up again. They're cruising a little bit more in the overall race, right? 9-1 with Detroit getting tripped up on Thanksgiving there against the Packers. Those three teams that now sit at 8-3. So even with the loss here, they're in pole position not only in their own division, with a 2-game lead over the Cowboys and currently the tiebreaker 1-0 against them, but also over the two other division leaders in the NFL, in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions also sit at 8-3. Buffalo, meanwhile, is fighting for their playoff lives, right? And at one point a couple weeks ago, I think was favored to miss the playoffs. So they're sitting at 6-5, could still catch Miami there in the division in a tight AFC East battle, but they have to contend with every other team, including a packed powerhouse AFC North, to get one of these wild card spots sitting at 6-5. So it's a situational spot, a team that needs it a little bit more. When you go under the hood a bit, statistically, there's some interesting rankings here, despite the records and despite the spread. The point differential, 61 points for Philly, 104-point differential for Buffalo. DVOA overall, not offensive or defensive ranking, just the overall blended rate, special teams and everything else, 10th for Philadelphia, 5th for Buffalo. So statistically, they can get it done. And I think they have to. So, all boxes checked here for me for Buffalo. That plus 3.5 if you can find it. But like Gunn, I would play it down to plus 3.
Yeah, three-way alignment. You guys said it. I'll jump off it. We've been saying this now for weeks. What's going on with the Bills? Apparently a lot, but apparently a lot gets changed very quickly with a new coordinator. Go back to last week. Remove Ken Dorsey, who I was not aware of this. I knew Ken Dorsey from the University of Miami and the whole thing, but apparently he was just a stress case, like super intense, perfectionist. And I think that wasn't really how Josh Allen and these boys function at their best. Perfectionism is fine to want it, but to act like it's the only way can cause a lot of problems. And Josh Allen said it apparently last week. I was reading a couple articles. I feel like I'm fucking back. And if he says that, he's feeling free. And I think it is symptomatic to this new guy, Joe Brady. Joe Brady, 4-year quarterback at William & Mary, 34 years old. So this guy's not an FBS product, which means he studied the game to get to where he is. He was not gifted it because he had some sort of name recognition. And oftentimes the best coaches are exactly those guys. The guys that had to grind and were not given it. And you go through the environment. You guys did it. I'm just going to say it very briefly. I have written down here for Philadelphia. Is Buffalo a sandwich game? Wildly, yes. Because they shouldn't be. Buffalo's damn good. But because of where they are right now, it's 6-5. Kansas City road win. Next week against San Francisco, then Dallas. This is 100% a trap game. And you go even into more detail on Philly. This is not us just speculating a narrative here. Philadelphia is coming off of a huge win and a road cover. Philadelphia coming off of road games. They are 2-0 ATS at home off a road non-cover. Off a road cover, they are 0-2 ATS at home. And we're not going to belabor this too much, but I'm going to segue to the late night game with this comment. Philadelphia is 9-1 straight up. Anthony mentioned this, plus 61 point differential. Buffalo is 6-5 at a plus 104. You shouldn't be 40-something points better and 4 games worse. It's very difficult to go 16 or 17-1 straight up. This is one of those spots where Buffalo very well could win this game outright. 4:25 p.m., Lincoln Financial Field. Buffalo Bills, stand the hell up on the road. 3-way collaboration official, plus 3.5, plus 3. Late night game, segue point was who's too hot and who is not too hot. I have a feeling Baltimore is also too hot. Chargers, a comedic statistical outlier. the gun with an official to open the conversation.
Yeah, I got a problem. I got a massive problem. I can't stop taking the damn Chargers on a 3. I cannot do it. Can you please cover one of these for me, Gailey? Just one. Just one. One. All right, let's talk about this game here for a second. Baltimore, they're coming in red hot, right? 8-3 straight up, 7-4 ATS off a beautiful win versus Cincinnati. We had it right correctly. Granted, we lost Joe Burrow in the process, 34-20 plus 130 net, 33 net yards in that game. You have the Chargers coming off back-to-back losses versus NFC North divisional NFC North opponents, Detroit and Green Bay. Lost a bad one, the same game twice, as I call it, with Detroit. 4-6 straight up ATS this season. Now you got Baltimore on the road this season. They're 4-1 straight up, 3-2 ATS with a plus 9 point differential, plus 88 net yard average on the road. But look who they played on the road. A little bit misleading, in my opinion. They beat Cincinnati on the road 27-24 early in the season, but that was with a Joe Burrow that was still dealing with a calf injury, and he had zero mobility, just trying to get through the game after game. He wasn't as healthy at that point, and he's not healthy now. At Cleveland, won that game 28-3, but who did they play? DTR. DTR, we just talked about that team and how statistically he is a bad quarterback. That was his first start as a pro. At Pittsburgh, they lost that game 17-10 with a -2 turnover ratio. Pittsburgh has Baltimore's number. At Tennessee, they won that game 24-16 in London, but that was kind of a one-off neutral site game, travel spot. It was one of those situational spots, and it came off a divisional loss. So Baltimore motivated to go get the W in that one. Then they go to at Arizona. They win the game 31-24 despite putting up their lowest offensive numbers of the season, 260 yards of total offense in that game with a -4 net yard average in that game, and almost lost. They actually had a huge lead in that game, but it let Arizona come back in it. Weird spot here for Baltimore as well. They played 3 straight home games, 2 back-to-back divisional games at home. Now they get to travel to the West Coast in a one-off off a primetime divisional win, and then they get their bye week next week. So it's kind of a weird spot for them to just kind of be like, I'm sitting at home. Now I got to travel to the West Coast, and then I come back. All right. Looking where the Chargers are, they're lost to a good Detroit team at home by 3 points, last second field goal. And then they had a deflating loss on the road to Green Bay, outside the division, outside the conference, and they kind of just was in a pure letdown spot, losing the same game twice. Just weren't mentally there, in my opinion. Now you have Baltimore is off the highs of highs, winning a primetime game. They dominated 3 NFC opponents prior to that. I don't believe they'll be fired up for this one with their bye coming up. And you look at Baltimore, they don't travel to the West Coast very often. They didn't play a single West Coast game in 2022. They played one this season. They went to Arizona. They won, but did not cover that game. And Arizona, one of the worst teams in the NFL for that matter. Baltimore also coming into this spot banged up. They lost Andrews for the year. Bad injury in that one. Zay Flowers has a hip issue. Odell Beckham's hurt. Ronnie Stanley's hurt. They're questionable on this one. So they're banged up going into their bye. And then you got to tell them to go, hey, you know what? You spend the three straight games at home. Why don't you go pack your ass and go to the West Coast, go to LA and go play this one-off game before your bye week? It's a bad spot for them. I just think the Chargers are just overdue hungry for a win. They're sick of playing all these close games. They're ready to roll up their sleeves, go against a high AFC opponent, probably the favorite to go win the AFC for that matter. And I think the Chargers get it done here and probably win this game outright with Baltimore sleeping and just wanting to lick their wounds to get healthy. Give me the Chargers here, but give me them on the +3 2-unit play.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. And, another thing that I think is even more noteworthy, you said they have a bye week next week. They also played on Thursday Night Football last week. So they're almost coming off of a mini bye, and then they have a bye afterwards. So you talk about your ultimate one-off game. They're not in any sort of flow here. And the Chargers just are an incredible statistical buy. Just incredible. Chargers are currently 4-6 straight up at a +21 point differential. That's unheard of. And you start to go through their losses. I mean, excruciating is one word. Almost incomprehensible is more appropriate. 5 losses by 2, 3, 3, 3, and 3. And 3 of those at home. 36-34 versus Miami in the opener. 20-17 against Dallas. 41-38 against Detroit. This team is right on that 3-point fringe every time. I'd venture to say you're almost free rolling if you've got 3.5 early week. This was 4, 3.5 until at least Thursday. This is a great spot. I'm not on it officially yet. I think the gun is onto this with immense correct detail. Anthony, any comments?
I just don't. If Stanley does lose this game, I will say I would be shocked if that man has a job tomorrow. But who knows?
They're the best 4-6 team in the NFL right
yeah.
now.
And
they're playing for
your playoff lives. That's this
super high motivational spot.
Yeah.
I mean, they might be one of the best 4-6 teams in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
It's rare to find a team that's 4-6 through 10 ball games with a plus 21 point differential. It's rare. So you just, I know people are going to bet Baltimore tonight, not thinking the detail we're looking at here. Betting pro sports is numerical analysis. It's not Lamar Jackson versus Justin Herbert. This is statistical dispersions. And there is no doubt about it. Chargers are a buy zone numerically. The gun on it at +3. Monday Night Football, I do not have anything. We'll be looking at that tomorrow night. I think we'll wrap it up on that. I think Chicago has some on the road against the Pastrana, but we need to get in there with more detail tomorrow. Tons of top plays on this broadcast. Circa Millions, the show, week 12, Sunday, November 26, 2023. The Shark, the Gun, the Odds Fellow. My 3 top plays: Indy money line 126, 150. Rams money line 135, 145. Buffalo +3.5, +3. Odds Fellow, Pittsburgh money line -135. Cleveland +1.5. Buffalo +3. The Gun with a 6-pack. Shots fired on a suddenly not so casual Sunday. Jacksonville -118. Indy -134. Atlanta +1.5. KC Las Vegas under 43.5. Buffalo 3-way collaboration alignment +3.5. Chargers late night +3. An opportunity to dominate. It is Sharky Waters Nation 9 Words Lifestyle. Right the way we get out of the water. Signing out for the Gun, the Odds Fellow, Guns Picks, top show, top people. We love you guys in the chat. Let's fucking dominate. Guns closing out with some comments. Let's go.
Yeah, Kelly Vincenzo hit it right on the head. Remember, you hit the like button on this show. If you like the content that we're putting out, that's how you pay us back. We do this absolutely for free. We need the likes. So we got to get in the algorithm. We got to get in the movement. Let's grow this thing great to the moon. And that's how you guys help us out with that one. And also hit the subscribe button if you have not done so already, because that is important as well. And hit the bell so you know every time that we go live. We not only do NFL content, we do college football, college basketball, NBA content. So make sure you check us out for that. And then let's just dominate today, baby. It's Sunday. We've been killing it in multiple sports. Hopefully you're enjoying the content. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the damn board. And as always, let's keep dancing.